Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening we're going to be discussing the term pie. Apple pie, maybe cherry pie, moon pie, or perhaps oatmeal cream pies. Okay, so for any of you who are like me and who are now hungry, pause the recording and come back and finish listening to it once you've had a snack. Actually, what we're going to be talking about today is pi, P-I, pi, which is a mathematical term used when we are finding particular things pertaining to circles. U.S. 6th grade students are responsible for knowing how to derive pi. To derive means to get. So you are responsible for being able to figure out how do we come up with the value that is used for pi. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is how do we actually come up with the value for pi. Before we can talk about coming up with the value for pi, we need to have some terms that we are familiar with. So we are going to review. The first thing we need to talk about is circumference. Circumference is, as you probably know, the distance around a circle. The distance around a circle. So the distance around the outside edge of a circle. So if I were to take a pen, and forgive me if I don't stay right on the circle, but if I were to take a pen and trace, oopsies, around the outside edge of this circle, that would be the circumference of that circle. So the outside edge around the edge of a circle is its circumference. The other piece of term that we need to know, or the other term we need to know tonight, is diameter. Diameter is the distance through the center of a circle, meaning that you need to go from one side through the center to the other side of a circle in order to get the diameter. So if we take this pen and we say that this is the center of the circle, and I draw a line from this side of the circle through the center to the other side of the circle, that represents the circle's diameter. So this is the diameter. Going back and looking one more time, the distance around is the circumference. In order to explain how to get pi, you need to know these two terms. You need to know that circumference is the distance around a circle and diameter is the distance through a circle center from one point on the outside edge of the circle to another point on the outside edge of the circle. The formula we use to find pi is actually very straightforward. Pi equals C, which was our circumference, divided by D, which is our diameter. C standing for circumference, D standing for diameter. That's what we need to remember. Those are how they are referenced. C is circumference, D is diameter. So any formulas that we do from this point forward, C, capital C, is going to be used as the circumference. Lowercase d is referring to diameter. The one thing we do need to keep in mind as well also is that pi is represented by a symbol that looks like that. This is the pi symbol. Anytime you see this symbol, it is referring to pi. So what we're going to be doing in our activities coming up in class is we're actually going to be being given some circles, and from those circles we are going to determine pi. We're going to take a circle. Doesn't matter what size the circle is, whether it's a big circle or whether it's a little circle or whether it's a medium-sized circle or a huge circle. It doesn't matter the size of the circle as long as we can determine its circumference and its diameter, we can come up with the value for pi. Now I'm sure that you all have the value for pi. You've heard it, you've worked with it before. Just in case you have not, Pi is actually has a decimal value as well as a fractional value. For the decimal value, we use 3.14 is the decimal value for pi. As sixth graders, you should also be able to recognize pi as a fraction, and pi as a fraction is represented as 22 over 7. Sometimes it's just easier to know that we have a fraction that we can deal with instead of always having to deal with a decimal and changing things into decimals. So at this time, you need to make sure that you are filling out your summary sheet. Make sure you have that ready for class tomorrow so that when we come into class, we can do some hands-on activities trying to determine and prove that 3.14 or 22 over 7 is truly the value of pi.